The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Hello?
We can hear you, Father.
Thank you. Let us pray. God, good and gracious God, we ask for your blessing upon today's session of the Minnesota House of Representatives. We pray for these representatives who have been elected to serve the people of our state of Minnesota. Loving God, we acknowledge that public service is a great gift to our community, and these men and women who serve in our legislature dedicate their time, energy, talents, and wisdom to serve our communities, and we are grateful for all they do for us. We also acknowledge the difficult times we live in. We know that Minnesotans of each generation face challenges and difficulties. Help us to not lose our vision of working for a better future while also addressing the many needs of the people of this hour and this day and these times. I ask you, God of goodness and love, to bless these members of the Minnesota House with wisdom. Strengthen their desire to serve the common good. Send your divine presence upon them so that they listen to each other with respect, even when they disagree. Help each of us to remember that we see your divine image in one another, in each of our brothers and sisters, and by serving one another, we are in turn serving you. We thank you, God, for hearing this prayer. Amen.
The chaplain for today is Father John Mitchell, pastor at Church of St. Paschal, Baylon, St. Paul, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members, when the clerk takes the roll today, please state your name, your location, and that you are present. Members using the remote voting technology, please also press the green or yes button. The clerk will take the roll.
Acom.
Acom, Minnetonka, present.
Acom, Minnetonka, present. Egbadje.
Egbadje, Minneapolis, present.
Egbadje, Minneapolis, present. Ackland.
Ackland, St. Peter, present.
Ackland, St. Peter, present. Albright.
Albright, Prior Lake, present.
Albright, Prior Lake, present. Anderson.
Anderson, St. Paul, present.
Anderson, St. Paul, present. Backer.
Backer, Browns Valley, present.
Backer, Browns Valley, present. Bonner.
Bonner, Maple Grove, present.
Bonner, Maple Grove, present. Barr.
Barr, East Bethel, present.
Barr, East Bethel, present. Baker. Baker. Becker Finn.
Becker Finn, St. Paul, present.
Becker Finn, St. Paul, present. Bennett.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present. Berg.
Berg, Rogers, present.
Berg, Rogers, present. Bernardi.
Bernardi, New Brighton, present.
Bernardi, New Brighton, present. Bierman.
Bierman, Apple Valley, present.
Bierman, Apple Valley, present. Bliss.
Bliss, St. Paul, present.
Bliss, St. Paul, present. Bow.
Bo, Chanhassen, present.
Bow, Chanhassen, present. Bolden.
Bolden, Rochester, present.
Bolden, Rochester, present. Burkle.
Burkle, Skagen Township, present.
Burkle, Skagen Township, present. Carlson.
Carlson, Bloomington, present.
Carlson, Bloomington, present. Christensen.
Christensen, Stillwater, present.
Christensen, Stillwater, present. Daniels.
Daniels, St. Paul, present.
Daniels, St. Paul, present. Doubt. Doubt, St. Paul, present. Davids. David, St. Paul, present. Davney.
Dabney, Minneapolis, present.
Davney, Minneapolis, present. Damath. Damath, St. Paul, present. Detmer.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present.
Detmer, Forest Lake, present. Drazkowski.
Truskowski, Winona, present.
Drazkowski, Winona, present. Eklund.
Eklund, St. Paul, present.
Eklund, St. Paul, present. Edelson.
Edelson Edina, present.
Edelson, Edina, present. Elkins.
Elkins, Bloomington, present.
Elkins, Bloomington, present. Erickson.
Erickson, St. Paul, present.
Erickson, St. Paul, present. Feist.
Feist, New Brighton, present.
Feist, New Brighton, present. Fisher.
Fisher, St. Paul, present.
Fisher, St. Paul, present. Frankie.
Frankie, St. Paul Park, present.
Frankie, St. Paul Park, present. Franzen.
Branson, St. Paul, present.
Franzen, St. Paul, present. Frazier.
Frazier, New Hope, present.
Frazier, New Hope, present. Frederick.
Frederick, St. Paul, present.
Frederick, St. Paul, present. Freiberg.
Freiberg, New Hope, present.
Freiberg, New Hope, present. Garofalo. Garofalo. Gomez.
Gomez, St. Paul, present.
Gomez, St. Paul, present. Green.
Green, Foston, present.
Green, Foston, present. Greenman. Greenman, St. Paul, present. Grossel, excused. Grunhagen.
Grunhagen, Glencoe, present.
Grunhagen, Glencoe, present. Haley. Haley, St. Paul, present. Hamilton.
Hamilton, St. Paul, present.
Hamilton, St. Paul, present. Hanson R.
Hanson R. Harmony, present.
Hanson R. Harmony, present. Hanson J.
Hanson J. Burnsville, present.
Hanson J. Burnsville, present. Hassan.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present. Houseman.
Houseman, St. Paul, present.
Houseman, St. Paul, present. Heinrich.
Heinrich, Anoka, present.
Heinrich, Anoka, present. Heinzman.
Heinzman, St. Paul, present.
Heinzman, St. Paul, present. Herr, St. Paul, present. Hertos.
Hertos, Greenfield, present.
Hertos, Greenfield, present. Hollins.
Holland, St. Paul, present.
Hollins, St. Paul, present. Hornstein.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present. Howard. Howard.
Howard, Richfield, present.
Howard, Richfield, present. Hewitt.
Hewitt, Rosemount, present.
Hewitt, Rosemount, present. Igo.
Igo, St. Paul, present.
Igo, St. Paul, present. Johnson. Johnson, St. Paul, present. Jordan.
Jordan, Minneapolis, present.
Jordan, Minneapolis, present. Jurgens.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present. Keeler. Keeler, St. Paul, present. Keel. Keel.
Hammond Township, present.
Keel, Hammond Township, present. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, Plymouth, present.
Cleavorn, Plymouth, present. Cagle.
Hagel, Spring Lake Park, present.
Cagle, Spring Lake Park, present. Katiza Wattoon.
Katiza Wattoon, Eden Prairie, present.
Katiza Wattoon, Eden Prairie, present. Kosnick.
Kosnick, St. Paul, present.
Kosnick, St. Paul, present. Creshaw.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present. Lee.
Lee, Minneapolis, present.
Lee, Minneapolis, present. Liebling.
Liebling, Rochester, present.
Liebling, Rochester, present. Lilly.
Lily, North St. Paul, present.
Lilly, North St. Paul, present. Lippert.
Lippert, Northfield, present.
Lippert, Northfield, present. Listlegard.
Listlegard, St. Paul, present.
Listlegard, St. Paul, present. Long.
Long, Minneapolis, present.
Long, Minneapolis, present. Lucero.
Lucero, Yucky Freeways in Maple Grove, present.
Lucero, Maple Grove, present. Lewick.
Lewick, St. Paul, present.
Lewick, St. Paul, present. Mariani.
Mariani, St. Paul, present.
Mariani, St. Paul, present. Marquart.
Marquart, St. Paul, present.
Marquart, St. Paul, present. Mason.
Mason Egan, present.
Mason, Egan, present. McDonald.
McDonald, Delano, present.
McDonald, Delano, present. Mecklin.
Mecklen, Sherburne County, present.
Mecklen, Sherburne County, present. Miller. Miller, St. Paul, present. Moeller. Moeller, St. Paul, present. Moran.
Moran, St. Paul, present.
Moran, St. Paul, present. Morrison.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present. Mortensen.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present. Mueller. Mueller, St. Paul, present. Munson. Munson. Murphy.
Murphy, Hermantown, present.
Murphy, Hermantown, present. Nash.
Nash, Waconia, present.
Nash, Waconia, present. Nelson M.
Nelson M., Brooklyn Park, present.
Nelson M. Brooklyn Park, present. Nelson N.
Nelson N., Clover Township, present.
Nelson N. Dakota Township, present. New Brindley. New Brindley, St. Paul, present. Noor.
Noor, Minneapolis, present.
Noor, Minneapolis, present. Novotny.
Novotny, Elk River, present.
Novotny, Elk River, present. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, St. Paul, present. Olson B.
Wilson B., St. Paul, present.
Olson B, St. Paul, present. Olson L.
Olson L. Duluth, present.
Olson L, Duluth, present. O'Neill.
O'Neill, St. Paul, present.
O'Neill, St. Paul, present. Pulowski.
Pulowski, Winona, present.
Pulowski, Winona, present. Petersburg.
Petersburg, St. Paul, present.
Petersburg, St. Paul, present. Farr.
Farr, LeSueur, present.
Farr, LeSueur, present. Pearson.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present. Pinto.
Pinto, St. Paul, present.
Pinto, St. Paul, present. Poston.
Poston, Lakeshore, present.
Poston, Lakeshore, present. Pryor.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present. Quam.
Quam, Byron, present.
Quam, Byron, present. Raleigh.
Raleigh, St. Paul, present.
Raleigh, St. Paul, present. Rasmussen.
Rasmussen, St. Paul, present.
Rasmussen, St. Paul, present. Ryer.
Pryor, Egan, present.
Ryer, Egan, present. Richardson.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present.
Richardson, Mendota Heights, present. Robbins. Robbins, St. Paul, present. Sandell. Sandell.
Sandell, Woodbury, present.
Sandell, Woodbury, present. Sandsted.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present. Schumacher.
Schumacher, Laverne, present.
Schumacher, Laverne, present. Schultz.
Schultz, Duluth, present.
Schultz, Duluth, present. Scott.
Scott Andover, present.
Scott, Andover, present. Stevenson.
Stevenson, Coon Rapids, present.
Stevenson, Coon Rapids, present. Sundin.
Sundin, St. Paul, present.
Sundin, St. Paul, present. Swazinski.
Swazinski, St. Paul, present.
Swazinski, St. Paul, present. Tice. Tice.
Tice, St. Paul, present.
Tice, St. Paul, present. Thompson.
Thompson, St. Paul, present.
Thompson, St. Paul, present. Torkelson.
Torkelson, St. Paul, present.
Torkelson, St. Paul, present. Erdahl.
Erdahl, St. Paul, present.
Erdahl, St. Paul, present. Vang.
Bay, Brooklyn Center, present.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present. Waslowick.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present. West.
West Blaine, present.
West, Blaine, present. Winkler. Winkler, St. Paul, present. Walgamot. Walgamot, St. Paul, present. Zhang J.
John J. St. Paul, present.
Zhang J, St. Paul, present. Zhang T.
Zhang T. Maplewood, present.
Zhang T, Maplewood, present. Joachim.
Joachim Hopkins, present.
Joachim Hopkins, present. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, St. Paul, present. Baker.
Baker, Candioi County, present.
Baker, Candioi County, present. Garofalo.
Garofalo, Farmington, present.
Garofalo, Farmington, present. Munson.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present.
Munson, Lincoln Township, present.
A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 92nd Session, 2021, 24th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Thursday, March 11th, 2021.
Further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection. The journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. There's a copy of this order of business online. If there's no objection, the motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail, and the substitutions will be made. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business is online. If there's no objection, the reports will be adopted. Representative Johnson.
Madam Speaker, I wish to object to House File 1686 being moved in this report.
Without objection, we will do the reports on all the bills except for House File 1686 first. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. We will now act on House File 1686. Is there any discussion? Representative Johnson.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I wish to object to the adoption of this committee report on House File 1686. The bill was added to the Public Safety Committee agenda on Thursday for Friday's hearing to make deadline. The bill was given a rush 15-minute hearing and re-referred to the General Register in spite of concerns of GOP members having on the content of the bill as well as the referral to General Register. The bill requires mental health crisis teams are dispatched to response to 911 calls, which is a good thing when appropriate, but when appropriate is not defined and is ambiguous. The bill would require a major shift in policy, touches on multiple committee areas, and a 15-minute hearing in public safety is not adequate for vetting such a large policy change. None of the testifiers had a response when asked whether the crisis teams have the level of training necessary to respond to every scenario that may encounter without police. The bill lacks an effective date, so the sweeping change would go into effect August 1st. Even one DFL member, Representative Hewitt, said in committee he has reservations on this bill because unlike police, fire, and EMT, mental health crisis teams do not have a regulatory body. The bill also amends Chapter 403, which is the county section of the statute, and needs to be heard in the local government subcommittee. The bill's Senate companion, Senate File 1924, chief authored by Senate Abler, was referred to Health and Human Services and the Finance Committee. Since the bill deals with mental health crisis response teams, it should also be heard in the House Health and Human Services Committee. For those reasons, I object to the adoption of the committee report on House File 1686 and ask that it be re-referred to the Human Services, Finance, and Policy Committee. Thank you for your consideration.
The member from Scott, Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also object to the re-referral motion. And I might add, I find the timing of this a bit suspect. This bill has not had an opportunity to be heard in Health and Human Services, but yet Health, Finance, and Policy heard 2108, House File 2108, which proposes to add a definition for a closed loop heat exchanger, which is an odd quirk in terms of the jurisdiction of that committee. That bill was introduced on March 10th, yet the bill that Representative Johnson objects to was originally introduced on March 1st. And I might also add, Madam Speaker, last year's Health and Human Services Omnibus Bill was fairly well seasoned with appropriations as well as policy that dealt with mobile mental health services. I'm surprised that neither Representative Schultz, the chair of Human Services Policy and Finance, or Chair Liebling, the chair of Health, Finance, and Policy, would not want to have this properly vetted in those committees. And so I would concur and support the objection to the motion and ask also that it be re-referred to Human Services, Finance, and Policy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Washington, Representative Frankie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in support of the Johnson motion in pulling House File 1686. I think anything dealing with a person in mental health crisis should have possibly come before our newly formed Committee on Behavioral Health to help deal with that situation. So I would ask members to support Representative Johnson's motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. As chair of the Public Safety Committee, we heard this bill most recently on the 12th of March. It's an interesting motion before us, members. This is a bipartisan bill. This is a bill where our committee reflected its constant focus on good, objective public policy, regardless of whether it's a Republican or a Democrat who's authoring the bill. We had a robust conversation on this bill. We heard heartrending testimony from the mother of a loved one, a mother who lost her loved one when things went wrong in regards to 911 responses. Unfortunately, that sometimes happens. Members, there's no change in health and human service dynamics in this bill. The reference to mental health crisis teams is already in existing language. What there is a prodding of moving our 911 systems forward in terms of embracing the need to properly prepare themselves to answer the request of citizens of Minnesota when one of their loved ones is suffering a mental health crisis, so that the appropriate professionals are sent to be able to help that individual. Representative Johnson actually made the case for why this bill should be on the floor when he talked about the when appropriate language that we use in other statutes as well. The whole point is that we trust our 911 people, we trust our public safety individuals to make the case in terms of how they respond. This language nudges them to move forward with the expectation that was set in statute not too long ago. So members, there is an issue, as Representative Johnson mentioned, relative to the enactment date. I actually share that concern. In our communication with the author of the bill, she made a commitment to work with both sides of the aisle so that when the bill is before us for final action, we will have an amendment to address that issue. So there really is no need to send this back. That small, important but small issue can be dealt with appropriately here on the floor of the House. And so members, I would urge you to reject the Johnson motion.
Members, we're on the order of business, reports of standing committees and divisions. And right now, what's on the floor is the adoption of the committee report for House File 1686, moving the bill from Public Safety and Criminal Justice Reform Committee to the General Register. A yes vote is a vote in favor of adoption of the committee report. A no vote is a vote in favor of rejecting the committee report. Representative Johnson.
Madam Speaker, members, what's going on here right now shows why it needs to go to Health and Human Services. This floor is not where we debate and finalize and put things in and amend the bills to make them the right way. That's done in committee. It's one thing doing the right thing, but when we do it, we need to make sure we do it right. And to do that, it needs to be in committee.
All those in favor of the Johnson motion, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion does not prevail.
Aye.
I did it backwards. All right, members. Representative Mariani moves adoption of the committee report. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The committee report is adopted.
Really?
Second reading of House files.
Second reading House File number 702.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 779.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1058.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1067.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1102.
Second
Second reading House File 1318. Second
reading.
reading House File 1359.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1368. Second
reading.
reading House File 1378.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1390.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1404.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1442.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1481.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1671.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1686.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1869.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1908.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1942.
Second
Second
reading.
reading House File 1947.
Second reading.
And second reading House File 2010.
Second reading, busy committees. Second reading of Senate files.
Second reading Senate File number 659.
Second reading.
Second reading Senate File 672.
Second reading. Introduction and first reading of House files. Following House files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction of first reading of House Files 2174 through 2247.
First reading House files 2174 through 2247. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to inform the House that the Senate is ready to meet with the House in a joint convention at 6:00 p.m. Monday, March 15th, 2021, for the purpose of electing members to the Board of Regents of the University of Minnesota. Message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate files herewith transmitted. Senate files numbers 4 and 263.
And so is the doubt motion attached to this?
Yep.
Okay.
One is going to committee on.
First reading of Senate files.
First reading is Senate File number 4, an act relating to public safety. The bill's being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration. First reading is Senate File number 263, an act relating to taxation. Pursuant to Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, doubt moves that the rule therein be suspended and an urgency be declared, and that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that Senate File number 263 be given its second and third readings and be placed upon its final passage.
The member from Isanti, Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. As you know, last week the Senate passed Senate File 263, which is the exemption of the forgiveness of PPP loans that were given from the federal government to Minnesota businesses. That bill would exempt them from taxes here in the state of Minnesota. I don't think it was ever anybody's intention that these funds would get taxed, and unfortunately that's the situation. So you often hear us talk about conforming with federal tax policy, and this is a federal conformity issue. So it is important that we do this, and it's especially important that we do this today, because today is the day that many businesses in the state of Minnesota pay their taxes into the state of Minnesota. So this is very, very timely. It needs to be done right away. And frankly, if we did this now, we can have this bill on the governor's desk, and these businesses can have some assurance of how they will be treated and how these dollars that they received from the federal government will be treated as it relates to our taxes here in the state of Minnesota. This morning, Republicans in the House held a press conference where we indicated, and I'm doing that for you all now, it's our desire that 4 issues be brought before the House of Representatives right away. There are 4 things that we think need to be brought up, that need to be passed, so that Minnesotans have some assurance of how these issues are going to be dealt with. Number 1 is this bill, the exemption of the PPP loans from state taxes. The second is a bill that would be federal conformity on unemployment insurance. It would treat the payments that Minnesotans received from unemployment insurance the same way, so that they were not taxed at the state level. The third of which is the SAFE Act, money that would be provided to communities who respond in the city of Minneapolis or elsewhere if there is a state of emergency declared. And as you know, there's a potential of something like that happening again. So it's very important that we act quickly on that one as well. And the fourth is summer school, making sure that we let school districts know that it's our intention to provide some of these new federal dollars that we'll be receiving to our local school districts, so that if they choose to put their students in a classroom and provide them with some educational opportunities over the summer, that we will reimburse them for that, and we'll provide them the money to do that. So those 4 issues we feel are very, very important. We believe they need to be brought up right away. We think this week is appropriate. It's our intention to bring each one of those bills to the House floor this week and make sure that we have an opportunity to talk about them and vote on them and pass them into law. As you know, this bill that's before us now, or that I'm urging you to bring before us right now for passage, Senate File 263, is the first step in that, which would exempt PPP loans from state taxes. As I said, this one is very, very timely. This is a very broadly bipartisan issue. This bill passed the Senate on a vote of 55-12. So broadly bipartisan, even over in the Senate, and I think we should take that as a sign that this is something that is good for Minnesota businesses, to provide them the relief that they need now. I would also add that I think what has happened is we went from a situation last summer where we had a $4.5 billion projected deficit to a situation where we are right now, where we have about $4.2 billion of surplus money. And interestingly enough, about $600 or $700 million of that surplus is money that we would be collecting because we would be taxing money that comes from the federal government to help both Minnesota businesses keep their employees employed. That's what the Paycheck Protection Act did. It was money given to from the federal government to these businesses so that they could keep people employed, so they weren't putting them on the unemployment rolls. And the second piece of that was money that given as a supplement to unemployment benefits from the federal government that the state of Minnesota is taxing. I'm going to say this a little different way, because I think when you think of it differently, it maybe hits a little differently. Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, and our state budget is profiting off of money that was given to displaced workers and money that was given to businesses to keep people employed. To me, that's unconscionable. I don't think there's a single person in this chamber or in this state that thinks that was ever the intent or thinks that that is something we should be doing. Believe me, members, now is the time to fix this problem, and passing this bill immediately would be the first step in that. But I also want to know, or want you to know, that our caucus's commitment is to support all 4 of these issues, because we know that this is what Minnesotans need, and they need to know about it sooner rather than later. So rather than tie these things one to another or whatever, we feel that it's appropriate to let everyone know that our caucus supports passing each one of these. We will bring them to the floor this week individually and ask that they all be passed. And I think this is an opportunity for us to show bipartisan effort and show that we're working together to get things done on behalf of Minnesotans. So with that, Madam Speaker, I would request a roll call on this motion as well.
And there's finally 15 members in the chamber. Are there 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and Leader Doubt did a very good job of describing the urgency on this issue. Members, we have over 100,000 businesses in Minnesota that receive PPP loans. If we do not do this, that will all be income. Now, it was not intended to be income, but since Minnesota does not automatically conform to federal law, federal tax law, this is necessary, and this is very necessary right now. Their taxes are due March 15th. Guess what day it is, members? I just looked at my new watch and it says it's March 15th. So members, this is an issue that we have to take up now, and I thank the Senate for sending it over on an extremely bipartisan basis. I mean, it's a veto-proof majority that they sent it over on. So members, I'm asking members on this one issue. It's just straight up. Let's not tax PPP loans. So members, I'd really appreciate the support of the doubt motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Clay, Representative Marquart.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members. And to be very clear, taking action on the Paycheck Protection Program conformity is a big issue for the House majority. And also a big top priority is making sure that every single business, every single family and individual that's been hit and impacted by COVID-19 also see benefits and tax cuts. And so before the train leaves the station, we need to make sure we bring everyone along, that we help everyone who's been hit by the COVID-19, and that's businesses, individuals, and families. And so this Senate File 263 that we're talking about right now leaves those businesses, families, and individuals who have been hit the hardest behind. And so members, because of that, I would ask you that you oppose suspending the rules on this. And so, you know, what businesses are being left behind? What individuals are being left behind? We know that those businesses, our restaurants, our bars, our entertainment venues, fitness centers, and so forth, have really probably been hit the hardest. And according to the Department of Revenue, 68% of these PPP loans that went out to businesses that operated at a loss. They operated at a loss, which means we could spend $438 million conforming to the PPP. And in 2020, those businesses hit the hardest in our communities, and we know who those folks are. But they would not receive one dime of benefit from that conformity. And Dee just released the job report again for January. We know in the last year, we're down 230,000 jobs in Minnesota. And in just the leisure and hospitality industry alone, it's 83,000 jobs lost, 32% of that job force. They need immediate assistance that they would not get in Senate File 263. They need that immediate assistance right now, and they're not going to get it right now. We also have up to 300,000 people who lost jobs during COVID-19, and they received unemployment insurance, which is taxable. The federal government has now conformed to the first, to subtract or exclude the first $10,200 of unemployment insurance income. Well, Senate File 263 conforms to only 18% of that. You need to do 100%. So you have this bill providing 100% conformity to businesses, but not including the businesses hit the hardest. And you have only 18% conformity going to our families and individuals who lost jobs. Also, this bill would not help those businesses that never, ever got a Paycheck Protection Program loan. And there is a huge amount that did not, either because, and mainly it's your really small businesses, because either they just didn't want to go through that, not that they didn't need it, or many of them might not have met the requirement for wages because they might have, with such few employees, a high overhead and other things that would drive down the percent on the wages. So members, Senate File 263 leaves these folks behind. these are some reasons, and also not to mention that this bill is probably unconstitutional. There are provisions in Senate File 263 that raise revenue. And according to the Minnesota Constitution, Article 4, Section 18, revenue bills have to originate in the House. I know some folks are mentioning a timing issue. We know that on March 15th, corporations have to pay their final estimated taxes and C Corps and partnerships and so forth. But even if something was done today, it takes at least 2 weeks for the Department of Revenue to turn things around. But besides that, I want to mention is that the Department of Revenue have said that if there is any business or individual who can't pay their estimated taxes or otherwise because of COVID-19, they can request an abatement to do away with the penalties and related interest on a late payment. And so, members, let's bring everyone together. That's the way in which we're going to strengthen our state's economy and make this state better. We don't want to take this bill that, while includes certainly some good items, leaves those folks hit the hardest behind. So, members, I would ask that you oppose the suspension of the bill.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Members, I wish you would take some time and just look at a map of the Midwest. Minnesota is an island again. We are the only state in the Midwest that is going to be taxing PPP loans unless we do something about it. So, Chair Marquart is correct that not everybody could actually use the loan forgiveness or the forgiveness on the taxes for the PPP, but a lot of businesses can. And when the small businesses in my district call me, these are not the big businesses. These are mom and pop shops, and they have received PPP loans. They're the ones that I'm looking at. So I would ask my good friend, the chair of the tax committee, to yield for a question.
Representative Marquart, will you yield to a question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
he will yield. Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 3 of the bodies in this legislature support doing this. Every state around us has done this. You mentioned that, I believe you said that we need to bring everyone together. Could you give the body, Chair Marquart, an idea of when that might happen?
Representative Marquart.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and Representative Davids. I first of all want to emphasize again the importance of taking action to conform to the Paycheck Protection Program. House File 501 is a bill I authored. It fully conforms. But I want to make sure, and I can't put a timetable on that. I think that would be for others. But I will say that we absolutely, before we pass any one bill, we need to include everyone. And that is a majority of these businesses who, as you even said, Representative Davids, are not going to benefit from this bill. And as I said, before the train leaves the station, we need to include everyone, because that's the way in which we're going to be stronger and better post-pandemic. And if we leave people behind, that is going to impede our progress that we have. So we have the PPP conformity bill that's been heard in tax committee. We have the full conformity, well, actually on all of the unemployment insurance that we heard in committee. We've got a lot of things ready to go because all of those are important. But we just have to make sure that we've got a bill in place that takes all these needs into consideration.
Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for that, Representative Marquart. Chair Marquart, the train has left the station, and 3/4 of the bodies in this legislature are on the train. We need to get the House on the train. Just because we would pass this doesn't mean we can't go further with, I think it was House File 501. And as far as Chair Marquart's comments about this could be unconstitutional because there's a revenue raiser in it, I have an amendment that could be at the desk very shortly. I have it right in my hand that takes care of that. I was hoping the good chair wouldn't catch that, but he's a good chair, and he caught it. I have the amendment that makes the bill revenue neutral. So the train's left the station. The train has left the station. Let's have the House get on board. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the tax chair yield for another question?
Representative Marquart, will you yield to a question?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
He will yield. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Mr. Chair, thank you for the discussion on this. We are hearing that the federal government, the Democrats in the Senate and the House and the President have placed into their next COVID bill that just recently was signed into law language that says, if we give you this $4.9 billion, Minnesota, you can't do tax cuts. Will this be looked at as a tax cut and in violation of that? And will we, through the House majority now sitting on their hands on this issue, be placed in a position where we won't be able to provide this tax relief if we wait too long?
Representative Marquart.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and Representative Drazkowski. So yes, I mean, what you're referring to is a provision in that bill that would say that no tax cut, directly or indirectly, that the state does could use any of this federal funding. So no, I don't think any future action would preclude us as long, and by the way, I have to say we've been meeting with research and not all of the notices and directions have come out from the federal government. So what I am saying could always change, but our understanding would be is that dollars used within the Minnesota state budget would have no impact. You could do whatever you wanted there as far as tax cuts, as long as you weren't using the federal funding to offset those tax cuts.
Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion on the doubt motion to declare an urgency. The member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this bill is unconstitutional. The motion before us uses an article of the Constitution, Article 4, Section 19, to suspend the House rules and allow a bill to be brought up without having it be read on the first, second, and third reading on different days. That's Article 4, Section 19. You only have to go up one article, just one step up, Section 18, entitled Revenue Bills to Originate in-House. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose and concur with the amendments as on other bills. Now, we have been hearing for 11 months about how the legislature is supposed to be exercising its proper constitutional role. We have been hearing about the emergency powers validly exercised under the law by the governor, thwart the legislature's legitimate and important use of its powers elected by the people to make decisions for the good of all the people and to be involved in decisions related to COVID-19. We've been hearing that for, I'm sure, every single time we have met. Yet, as soon as there is a bill to allow very large companies who've made a lot of money last year to get a corporate tax cut, suddenly the role of the legislature doesn't matter anymore. Suddenly the role of the Minnesota House is unimportant. We know, if anybody who has served more than one term knows, that our power as a House is the ability to originate all tax bills. The same goes for bonding bills. The Senate has the power to fire commissioners. They've been using that power. The House has the power to start tax bills and bonding bills. We have been using that power. And in fact, that power has resulted in a lot of success over the last year. We have used a bonding bill power to pass the largest public works bill in state history. We've used our tax powers to make sure that the rich and well-connected don't run rampant through the tax code and grab whatever they can. and in fact make sure that we have revenue and tax dollars available to take care of the workers and families and small businesses of Minnesota. Have we been doing that? Absolutely. We passed a nation-leading bill for small businesses and workers in December. We provided $200 million for the hospitality industry and ensured that workers had an unemployment insurance extension. We used the House's powers to do that. Democrats are defeating COVID-19 with our policies. Democrats are moving to reopen the economy. We are moving to reopen the economy, placing workers, families, and small businesses first. A motion like this today only guarantees that we don't have an opportunity to use our power in the House, the people's House, to act on behalf of the people. We will get to the provisions of these bills related to unemployment insurance. We will get to the provisions of these bills related to small businesses, but we will do it in good order according to the rules, according to a legitimate use of legislative powers. Members, please vote no.
The member from Isanti, the Minority Leader, Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and those that are, and members and those that are watching at home. I can tell you that I am disappointed, but I can not tell you that I am shocked. Democrats have absolutely failed Minnesotans for this entire session. We are in the 10th week, I think, or we're through 10 weeks of the legislative session. We're more than halfway through this session, and this House majority has passed only 5 bills, most of which are just innocuous little date changes and have no real impact on the lives of Minnesotans. And we hear excuse after excuse as to why we can't take action now on something we know that Minnesotans need. But we hear a lot of language about big businesses and big corporations because they want to defend the state of Minnesota profiting off of money that was sent from the federal government to small businesses to keep Minnesotans employed during this pandemic, and they want to profit off of money that was sent to Minnesotans who are displaced and not working during this pandemic. I'm sorry. March 15th wasn't just a magical date that appeared this year on the calendar. We've known it was coming, and this majority knew that it was coming. And they knew that this money was going to be taxed the whole time. But this majority has failed to act on this, just like it has failed to act on so many other things. To the chair of the tax committee, I appreciate that you have a bill to do this, but where is it? Because these tax bills are due today. And we have had 10 weeks to get that bill to the House floor. But again, inaction by Democrats in the Minnesota House. You complained that this bill doesn't have enough other stuff in it. That's why we went on the record today of saying these are the things we support. These are the things Minnesotans support. And these are the things that Minnesotans are wondering why you can't get them done. This excuse about revenue raising in a bill because someone interprets a minuscule provision that it raises some revenue. We've got an amendment right here. We can take the bill up right now. This amendment makes that small provision. It clarifies that that provision does not raise revenue. What you heard on this House floor was an excuse as to why the majority party in this chamber doesn't want to help Minnesotans when they need it in a pandemic. We have a governor who has transferred COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. We have one of the highest death rates in nursing homes in the country. We have a governor, much like the governor of New York, who underreported nursing home deaths. And we have a majority in this body who has sat on their hands the entire time. And when we ask them to take action, they say, we are preserving the power of the House. I'm sorry, I have never seen such weakness in my life. You are pathetic. Minnesotans need you. They need you to step up. When will you be happy? When 75% of businesses have closed permanently and those jobs are no longer? Tell me when. When will it be enough? If $4.2 billion of revenue isn't enough, what will be enough? And I better never hear somebody in this chamber in this year, when Minnesotans are hurting so badly and the state government is so flush with cash, talk about taking more money out of Minnesotans' pockets. You are pathetic. And you have power if you wouldn't continually, day after day, give it away. You have the power to help Minnesotans. You have the power to make sure the money they're getting from the federal government can stay in their pockets. But you refuse to take action. For 12 months, you've refused to take action to rise up and respond to the pandemic right alongside the governor, to be the check and balance that our Constitution defines you are. And now when Minnesotans need you, you are failing them, sitting on your hands. How many more tax deadlines and tax bills are going to come due? Are we going to make it past April 15th? You know that many Minnesotans right now who are supposed to get a stimulus check from the federal government, who hurried up and did their taxes so they'd have updated income to get this stimulus payment, but they didn't realize that that $600 supplement on their unemployment was taxable. And now the stimulus check that they thought they were getting this week, they aren't getting, because we're withholding it because you won't exempt it from taxes. And you knew all of this was coming, all of it. You know, when I stood up to make this motion, I wasn't angry. But your response and inaction has angered me like I've probably never been angered on this floor. How long do I have to hear excuses why you can't do your job? You're going to have more opportunities to do your job. 5 bills on the House floor in 10 weeks. Do you know that's the slowest start in recorded history? At a time when we have a pandemic and Minnesotans need you? I've never been so ashamed of anyone in my life. I want to step up and help Minnesotans. And if you're not willing to lead, get out of the way so those of us who want to help Minnesotans can. You will have more opportunities this week to help Minnesotans. Because in addition to this bill, we're going to bring a bill to exempt the unemployment insurance so that Minnesotans can keep that stimulus check. And we're going to bring a bill on the SAFE Act, which should have been passed a month ago, to fund the law enforcement that may be needed. We hope it won't be, but it may be needed. And we're going to bring a bill here to fund summer school, because our kids deserve to be in a classroom, and they deserve to have a teacher in that classroom too. And our local school districts are going to need some money to help fund that. These aren't partisan issues at all, but I've never seen anybody make something not partisan as so quickly partisan as you did today on the House floor. Let's hold these bills up. Let's hold them hostage for something else. No, not in a pandemic. No. That's shameful. This won't be your last opportunity to help Minnesotans, but I can't believe that you're so selfish that you want to pass it up. Madam Speaker and members, please vote in favor of this motion to declare an urgency. Let's put this bill before us. Let's add this minuscule amendment to make this bill constitutional, and let's send it to the governor's desk tonight so that these businesses know what's happening. They deserve to know. They've had enough hurt and harm this year. Let's do our jobs. They expect us to do it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the roll on the doubt motion to declare an urgency. Members who are voting remotely, please vote. Will the chief clerk please call the names of those who have not voted yet?
Berg.
No.
Berg, no. Davney. Davney. Feist.
No.
Feist, no. Greenman. Greenman, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, yes.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton votes aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R, no.
Hanson, R, no. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, no.
Jordan, no. Keel. Keel. Lee.
Keel. Oh.
Lee.
Lee, no.
Lee, no. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. Munson.
Munson, aye.
Munson, aye. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, no.
Pryor, no. Stevenson.
Stevenson, no.
Stevenson, no. Thompson. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Davney.
Gaffney, no.
Davney, no. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 63 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail.
Senate File Number 263 was referred to the Committee on Taxes.
Motions and resolutions. There are a copy of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we will take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail.
Jordan moves that House File Number 203, now on the General Register, be re-referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, that is my motion. This is the bill that specifies projects that received bonding pool allocations in 2020 that they had to return. And due to the impacts of COVID-19, will receive a refund of their application deposit, a fiscal notice shown to have an impact on the general fund. So now this bill needs to go to Ways and Means. I spoke to Chair Moran and she's supportive of this motion. And members, I ask for your support.
Any discussion to the Jordan motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
Richardson moves that House File Number 1081 be recalled from the Committee on Education, Finance, and be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law.
The member from Dakota, Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House File 1081 is the Education Policy Omnibus Bill. There was an amendment that was added to that bill with a data provision, and it should go to Judiciary.
Any discussion to the Richardson motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
Hollins moves that House File Number 2245 be recalled from the Committee on Climate and Energy, Finance, and Policy, and be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Hollins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That is my motion. This bill would extend the sunset of the 2020 session law that created a temporary filing process needed because of the closure of county offices due to COVID. Of course, those offices have not yet reopened, and therefore we need an extension of that. I've spoken with both the chairs, and they are amenable to this change.
Any discussion on the Hollins motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Announcements. The member from Washington, Representative Jurgens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Afton's Jessie Diggins crossed off another major accomplishment to go along with her 2018 cross-country ski Olympic gold medal. Jessie wrapped up the International Ski Federation World Cup race season over the weekend, winning the overall World Cup. The World Cup overall takes results from an entire season of competition across different distances and techniques. It's the Super Bowl of cross-country skiing. Jessie also won the World Cup distance category. She's the first U.S. woman to ever win either of these honors, and she won both. As her mother, Deb, described the achievement, almost unthinkable just 10 years ago, the power of big dreams, hard work, teamwork, and communities that support and believe in Jessie is amazing. Jessie Diggins finished the season with 1,347 total points, which is 268 points ahead of the next competitor. Earlier this season, you might remember, Jessie became the first American to win the Tour de Ski, which is a Tour de France-like, stage-like race. Jessie Diggins is an outstanding role model for young women and girls throughout the state, across the country, and around the world. She is a true champion in every sense of the word. Madam Speaker, members, please join me in congratulating Afton, Minnesota's very own FIS World Cup overall champion, Jessie Diggins. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 12:15 p.m. Wednesday, March 17, 2021.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 12:15 Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House recess to meet in joint convention with the Senate for the purpose of electing regents to the University of Minnesota.
Representative Winkler moves that the House recess to meet in joint convention with the Senate for the purpose of electing regents to the University of Minnesota. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion prevails and the House stands in recess to the call of the chair.